are moving on to the next panel segment, where we tackle one of the most pressing issues of our time, ESG and climate change, succeeding in a new world. Moderating this session is the co-organizer of this event, the CEO of Red Sycamore Global, a carbon venture builder that creates solutions for people, planet, and profit. He moderated a panel discussion on climate change at COP28 in Dubai last year and was formerly COO of a China-listed company. Keen is also represented Singapore as a finalist in the World Championships of Public Speaking in 2021. He believes saving the world requires a concerted effort towards sustainability. I know some of you feel very shy because we are all Toastmasters, but you don't have to, because let's welcome Keen.
Thank you, Camilla, for the introduction. Fantastic afternoon, everyone. Okay, just to check, I know it's been a really heavy morning thinking about leadership, thinking about innovation, thinking about a lot of big words and how we can transform our countries and our communities. That said, we are at the cusp of, as Terence mentioned, the fifth industrial revolution, right? The carbon revolution. And on that idea, why we're doing a panel on ESG, can I just check with the audience? I need to understand where we are with this. How many of you know what ESG stands for? Can I just see a show of hands? Okay, I see about a third of the hands. Anyone knows what the S in ESG stands for? Shout it out. Social. Yeah, social, and it's for those who know, because everyone else thinks it's sustainability. But it's actually social. So just to give a quick background, ESG refers to environmental, social, and governance. And in this case, for the context of this panel, we look at it in terms of how we need to think about ESG and how it affects the climate. Why? I don't know if some of you saw the panel on my right earlier. At the top of the mountain, suddenly there was a yellow word saying temperature warning. Anyone saw that? Yeah. I know. It's like predicting what's going to happen, right? Melting ice caps and things like that. That said, who are we as businesses, who are we as leaders to make that difference in terms of sustainability? So this panel will explore developments since the last UN Climate Change Conference, or the COP28 at Dubai, how we really can adapt to new regulatory frameworks, socio-political realities, and the onset of carbon credits as a financial instrument. As is, what will happen whether we like it or not, the last few months have been terribly hot. As I understand, at the Hajj just a week ago, temperatures reach up to 50 degrees Celsius, right? And it's not just weather, it's climate. And if we don't do anything, maybe we are part of that problem. So this panel will explore that, how we can understand all of these things, what sustainability is, and what we can do to understand the trend of ESG, the carbon markets, and reaching net zero, so that we still have a future tomorrow. To join us on this journey in exploring ESG, I'd like to invite my first speaker, Dr. Victor Tay. Victor is the founder of Global Catalyst Advisory, which advises government, policymakers, and NGOs. It was rated in the US among the top 30 most innovative companies to watch in 2024. He is also Regional Managing Director with Stout Investment Banking and founder of Rebel Labs, an accelerator that incubated several successes, including the Air Carbon Exchange, which was the world's first fully regulated carbon exchange for the voluntary carbon market. Victor was also chairman of the UN Global Compact Network Singapore and works with government focusing on growing local companies and helping businesses internationalize. Victor has also won the most influential sustainable business CEO in ASEAN award last year, Financial Excellence Leadership Awards in 2022, and the Green Asia Leadership in both the Game Changer and Innovation categories. Despite winning so many awards, Victor is also a very charitable person. He served as chairman for the Association of Persons with Special Needs for more than 2 decades, running 5 schools, assisting 1,500 special needs individuals. Let's welcome Victor on stage. Right, my second panelist, Dr. Vincent Lim. Vincent is the CEO of Eco Sustainability Group and an associate faculty at Singapore Institute of Technology, teaching carbon accounting and sustainability reporting. He was CFO APAC in Datalogic Società per Azioni, Deputy Group CFO in Hi-P International Limited, and the Director of Finance for Asia in Motorola Solutions. He is also a member of the Institute of Singapore Chartered Accountants CFO Committee and served in the Executive Committee as Treasurer and Council Member. He was also former Chair of Association of Certified Chartered Accountants SME Transformation Committee and its Singapore Network Panel Member. He holds a doctorate and several professional titles including FCCA, FCA Singapore, and ACA. He is really a multi-hyphenate, spending his spare time as a band pianist, book author, boat skipper, guest lecturer, professor, traveler, Toastmaster, and Taekwondo 5th Dan Master. Let's welcome Dr. Vincent. My third panelist is David Chen. David is the founder and CEO of Aggregate, a Singapore-based agri-fintech startup that addresses the financing gap in the rice sector for smallholder farmers. With 16 years in the rice industry, David is a sought-after speaker at food security conferences worldwide for his work on innovative loan products that incentivize sustainable practices, such as greenhouse gas emission reduction in rice farming. David is also a senior expert at the ASEAN Climate Resilience Network, and he just returned from Cambodia, where he co-authored a paper on the ASEAN Carbon Neutrality Guideline for Agriculture, which was launched and validated by members of ASEAN. David is also Secretary General at the Fencing Federation in Singapore and was a national fencer and coach. He calls himself a problem fixer and discipline master in one single package. David. My fourth panelist, Kevin Lim. Kevin is the Managing Director of Megaton Shipping Private Limited, a Singapore-based international freight forwarding company. Established for over 3 decades, he services clients worldwide in sea, land, and air transportation. In addition to serving general freight locations, Megaton offers niche freight services to Central Asia and Mongolia. Kevin is also in the financial advisory business for the last 15 years, advising clients on global trends and investments and risk management for individuals and companies alike. He is also club president of AIA Toastmasters Singapore, the only corporate club in Singapore that has won the President's Distinguished Award every year with a perfect 10 points out of 10 for the last 20 years. He says his passion is people. Kevin. Let's pose for the camera first. Thank you. All right, so let's begin. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this panel. I mean, it is, after reading out 5 pages of bio, I suddenly feel very small, but I know that's not the point. That said, we really are tackling an important topic here, which is ESG, sustainability, and doing our part. And I'm sure all the leaders in this room want to know what more we can do besides turning down the aircon, right? Or taking public transport. But that's it. Is ESG just a trend, or is it here to stay? Are we as leaders all obligated to implement ESG in business? Would anyone like to take this question?
Firstly, just to understand everyone here, anyone here are ESG professionals? Can I have a show of hands? That means, oh, okay, we have. Of course, Terence has always been multi-talented. So ESG, so there's one here. Any other here who are into ESG report? Okay, there are. Yes, there are two. So I guess for those who actually are familiar, ESG first came out when it first mentioned from United Nations. I was actually with United Nations Global Compact previously. And 2004, they came out with a book called Who Dares Win? And ultimately what happened is, I think practically most enterprises or businesses focuses on financial profit as the most important part. So Who Dares Win basically is published to highlight to many to say, if you could actually be financially successful, why can't you also be equally successful in social and environmental, and hence the term ESG, right? So in here, within ESG itself, I think most, for those who are professionals, who have known very well that, I think in G, governance, we see regulations. We see within, by 2006, 2 years after Who Dares Win had been published in UK, the Company Registration Act would have came about, and of course with all the assurance that auditing professionals here would actually highlight there are proper standards in how you derive and develop your financial reporting. So there are in this case. But in terms of how financial reporting are there, I think that very much in terms of social environment, there is no such standards as yet. So hence it is, we see a lot of financial reporting that are out there. If you're listed companies, you will see that a lot of disclosure, and that's where many of the audiences here will have actually highlighted. I saw this as a great company. It actually has ESG 3 stars, or maybe it has an excellent ESG rating. Then why did they embroil in these issues where, let's say, an automotive company actually falsely reported or disclosed their carbon emission? How could an excellent ESG then translate to such an outcome? And maybe some of you who dated back enough will even ask that Enron was great too in terms of its ESG disclosure. They have excellent assurance and auditing. Then why did this not translate to a equally great outcome? And I guess this is a question that actually, I think the panel here will actually later on start to dive deeper at that. Then why do ESG not translate to great success in terms of just not business financial, but also social environmental? I guess in my opinion in here, and I think many of you actually will have alluded to, or maybe had agreed that, I think the lack of standards is one. And number two, I think ESG would have, since 2004 to now, 2 decades old. It is there. I guess it's there to stay, but it's there for refinement too. In United Nations, we actually had then evolved ESG standard towards 17 SDGs. And in here will be Sustainable Development Goals. And in here is beyond just financial reporting. But I think the need, if you look at 17 SDGs, it actually highlighted, as in social space, you see zero poverty, looking at good sanitary water, in terms of good treatment of labor, and all aspects, even private-public partnership, and the 17th of it. And I guess that's where great companies would have actually start looking at the 17 and therefore start ticking up the checklist and say, I could actually be financially successful, and also I should also be trying to be aligned to the 17 SDGs here. And I guess my colleague here actually is an expert in ESG. Maybe I think you have more to elaborate on that. Boon Sing, would you want to?
Not so long ago, we have one of the highest temperature summer. And many of the people told me, Vincent, this is once in a lifetime. No problem at all. Then the next year, it got higher. And then one politician came, this is once in a 100 years' time. And then the next year, it got higher. And after that, that guy kept quiet. Yesterday in Mecca, I was told that there are 550 deaths due to heat wave. And those are the registered one, and the unregistered one could be thousands. This is not fun, So when Dr. Victor was talking about ESG, I think it will be a trend. I think it will continue. It will become more and more serious. And I sincerely think we have to do something for our generation as just human beings. If we don't, we will regret it as a human species. And I sincerely feel that this forum is very important.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Just as a disclaimer, I'm the only non-Toastmasters among this group, so it will be very evident in the way I deliver my conversation. So I think I would like to talk about what Dr. Victor mentioned just now about why this company with seemingly good ESG scoring doesn't actually turn out well. Now, and also I dare to say this thanks to what Dr. Rosina shared just now. The realization I have over the past 10 years is a lot of time companies, when we look at ESG, we look at it at a very shallow level. Can we use that word yet? Greenwashing? Yes? Okay, so a lot of time when you look at it at a very shallow level, it turns out to be greenwashing. And the very cynical conclusion I have is we still don't know how to relate ESG to financial terms. So if you're a company, you think about everything through financial terms, regardless of how you want to think about it, right? So how does better environmental impact, social impact, and governance relate in your financial term? I think that's a science that needs to be developed over time. And if that can be done, then the notion of greenwashing will be gone, because then in your entire accounting and reporting mechanism, you have to be really transparent and accurate about what you say, right? Just like now, why we can't make a false financial reporting because it's a fraud. Same thing that needs to be applied to ESG as well in the future. So ESG is here to stay, and eventually, beyond just the typical reporting GRI or whatever we think that ultimately you'll be legalized and you can't fake your reporting, right?
Thanks, David. Before Kevin takes the stage, because the three speakers on my left are all from green businesses. Kevin, on the other hand, is not exactly quite a green business yet, as I understand. Are your views different from theirs in terms of ESG?
Okay, so as a disclaimer as well, three of them are in the ESG space. I am not. I am a layman here, sitting here, probably giving contrary kind of conversations that we have. And somehow, I just don't know why, but I just feel like I'm like a David amongst Goliaths. Not just one Goliath, but three Goliaths. Yeah, so back to the question on Kin's question, whether are we obligated in a sense? From my perspective, being a local here, being in SME, being non-ESG, maybe blue, purple, non-green. A lot of things really depends on what kind of business we are in, firstly, I think, the kind of industry. Secondly, would be what kind of model of business are we in? Whether are we in asset heavy, asset light? And thirdly, what kind of customers do we have? Whether the customers are fellow SMEs, or whether are they MNCs, or whether are they in the government sectors. So all these will play different parts of it. And to be very honest, SMEs, the main focus will be really, not really sustainability in that sense, environment and all this, but sustainability or survivability in the business. And most SMEs, companies, we look into maybe short-term, or maybe mid-term, but never at a longer term, because we don't know what will happen. It's unlike the MNCs. So really, depending on where we are, there are so many variations in this, and it's hard to say that, okay, whether are you on a yes or no, but I would say that on a perspective of SMEs, mostly, not all, mostly are not obligated in that sense to get on board the ESG space.
That said, I'm aware that David has worked with many smallholder farmers and small businesses to implement sustainable practices, right? Will your experience share a different light as compared to what Kevin has shared with us?
Actually, to the disappointment, not at all. Because the message is very consistent. And the reason, when we talk to smallholder farmers, we don't talk about sustainability. We don't talk about the methane that they are emitting from the field. We're trying to get them to move through behavioral change. But we must also understand that for most of the smallholder farmers that we speak with, they are the underserved. They are living under poverty line, making less than $2 per day. So from a mind space perspective, you expect them to think about 10 years down the road, my next generation. They are thinking about whether their kids have food tonight. So the narrative is very, very different. And like it or not, ultimately it comes down to whatever you are asking them to do, changing their practices, adopting new technology, how will it affect their bottom line? And it is through this conversation with these smallholder shareholders, farmers, And I started to understand that actually it applies to the corporate that we are trying to bring in to support them as well. Because for everyone, it's really just about survivability. For the smallholder farmers, the same. For corporate, the same. Right? So I actually don't have a different view. It's actually the same. It's about changing a narrative. Yes, sustainability is at the heart of all it, but how does it really impact the people that we're trying to convince to come on board? And we have to suit their needs as well.
If you don't mind, so since we are talking about money, so we have to use financial incentive to motivate people. I fully understand that. I am still the CFO of Data Logic, a company listed in Milan, and I look at P&L. So my company is a manufacturing company, so every cent counts, So I look at all my P&L, and there's one item that's gone through like increase by about 20%. And then my team was very worried, and we focused. So we hold QBR for like 3 days. Do you all know that most companies has one cost that will increase 400%? What cost is that? All listed companies will have this cost. Anyone knows? It is called the carbon tax. Anyone know what is the carbon tax today? Just announced in the budget. Anyone knows? $25. Last year, $5. 25 minus 5, 400%. If you have one element that increased 400%, you better like really focus on it. I've been to many conferences. Many people just say, have man, Vincent, have ah. They will know next year when they have to pay tax law. So the issue is, I think, from cost perspective, it is very crucial. Secondly, Kin was in COP28, right? So everyone know Terence was also in COP28. Do you know what happens in COP21? Paris Agreement, 196 countries signed for zero carbon emission. Countries sign and pledge, mandatory. They will do something. I guarantee you the government will increase the carbon tax every few years, and a $5 to 25, 25 to 40, 40 to 80. If you just look at financial, man, the project that you do, let's say it's a green project, or if you're looking at emission, any project that can give you 400% return, maybe you should focus on it. Thanks.
I guess out here there are a lot of, how many of you from SMEs, small, medium enterprises? And I guess I don't know whether you resonate exactly what Terence and David has said, or maybe the two Davids have said too. So I guess I have been in UN Global Compact for like 20 years, and I also have been promoting about this. I know early years, many of you have said, if you look at a financial statement just like Vincent does, right? And you said, hey, I saw these guys embark on environmental friendly products, environmental endeavors, their costs are really high. And here it is, either their product become really expensive. Look at all the 3-ticks product. It seems more expensive than a 1-tick in some way. And hence in the mind of many, it would have actually correlate. Environmental friendly products means more expensive. And some of them will even equate in this way. If they say I can't raise my selling price, then my profit will be eroded. And I guess that would have been a proposition what the two Davids actually highlighted, right? So in this case, I guess what Vincent had highlighted is the reality. Since the Paris Protocol that came in, and many countries actually posture towards a carbon tax. So that's one. Carbon tax will mean that if you are actually having excessive emission, then here it is, you have to pay the tax. But on the other side, we saw the voluntary carbon credit market. Later on, we'll dive deeper into carbon credits. For the environmental friendly product that you do, or even the simple solar panel that you have, any one of you own solar panels in your residential or production? Anyone? Oh, yeah, that's one, yes. And you'll find that in that case, you not only defray the expensive utility costs, some of you on monthly basis, you get back revenue. So now this part of things has actually changed since 2 decades ago. Environmental initiatives become a revenue to you, and in some way reduce your costs as well. So with this paradigm, and since you're a voluntary carbon credit market, you're able to have 2 sources of revenue now. Your usual selling product or services price is one, and the second part is your environmental friendly product, your carbon credits. So with this, that means that if you are the SMEs and now you're looking at how do I actually defray that inflation? How do I actually get more revenue? Carbon credits and therefore environmental friendly products. And just like Vincent had highlighted, right? So that's something that later on we can dive deeper. Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
So this is for Dr. Vincent. You mentioned about 400% carbon credit, carbon tax. In my opinion as a layman and SME, it will really depend on what kind of business that I run. If I'm in the oil and gas, yes, that's a really high carbon tax in that aspect. Logistics, maybe depending on which segment or sector of logistics, because it's really wide. But maybe questions like businesses in retail, businesses in education, like tuition centers and all this, an example. How does this relate to this kind of businesses then?
So, fantastic question. So, just now Dr. Victor Tay was talking about the standards. So there were many standards, GRI, TCFD, CRSD. We have seen the consolidation into ISSB. ISSB, IFRS S1, S2 requires the carbon calculation. I'm a professor of carbon accounting, so carbon calculation in 3 scopes. So scope 1, 2, 3, and in scope 3 there are 15 categories. So if we just look at a retail company, we say that, oh, we don't produce oil, nothing to do with me. It's not like that one. So every time you on the electricity, you have scope 1. Every time you use water, you have scope 1. Every time you throw waste, you have scope 1. And if you have, let's say if you are an employee, you own a car, and then if it's not an electric car, you have scope 1. Let's say scope 3, you have your customers. So you sell a product to your customer finish using it, throw it away, that's your scope 3. So I encourage you, just take a look, because I don't have like three days to look at this, but look at some of the items that you can do. Eventually, it will count into your company. But I know what you mean. Today, as SME, I don't really care because the regulation doesn't touch me. So just now I talked about 400%. It is to listed companies only. So in 2025, listed company will kena the carbon tax. 2026, they will start to have assurance. So auditors will come in and check you. 2027, SME will kena. So what I'm talking about is about 2027. But that's what like all speakers talk about, right? Yeah, that's just how Dr. Rosalina was talking about. So we have to look in the future, right? We have to focus on what will come. 2027, SME will kena. So in shipping line, I suspect, a lot of scope 1, man. So scope 2, maybe not so much, but your scope 1 is going to be a lot.
And I wanted to add on to this that retail, and some of you are, anyone in retail or in product services, anyone? Not really, okay, which means I can actually BS my way about the product and retail. If you have actually seen Europe basically in all products actually had regulatory compliance. And I understand that many of my European colleagues, they basically highlighted when they look at this, I know some ladies, you look at the calories, right? But I can't say Europeans, they looked at it and say, what is the carbon footprint? And here it is, they will compare to, and that's where, sometimes they will say, hey, but this is so much carbon footprint, I'd rather not get this, I get the other one. So that, if you're a product company and retail company, immediately you can slash off, selection process. And if you remember, some 10 years ago, we had haze in Singapore when it was more than 400 PSI. Some of you probably still remember, fresh in our mind. In NTUC, we were offloading all the products to say, orders that comes from a certain unverified palm oil or palm certification plantation, let's not have this. And they actually send it back and refund it. So basically, if product company or retail company, if you are not following this trend, and I guess many of them are not, and therefore I think we saw even shopping malls are having a lot of closures of retail company. So that is one way to look at it. But for shipping company, immediately I think as per what Vincent highlighted, scope 1 is what's your emission? And here it is, I see international airlines, IATA, and also the shipping, the maritime organization had actually highlighted, if you do not meet this, then please defray it to voluntary market. And I guess somehow when the countries cannot meet their own individual MDCs, which is our own voluntary target, right? They will start to make some of this pay for it. And likely, I think shipping will be badly hit. David.
Before that question, I was just thinking that as the ESG panel, we've been having all these strong lights in our eyes for a while. Can we save the energy by turning off the main panel? Just a little bit. Yeah. Okay, David, your question.
Actually, this question is back to you. Going back to narrative, right? Today, if say Dr. Victor and Dr. Vincent come to you and convince you that by 2027 there's going to be an increase in your operating cost, and they don't talk about ESG at all. They basically say that you need innovation to resolve that. Would it be an easier pill to swallow because you would just think about it as part of your process rather than this additional ESG sustainability burden that suddenly you have to take on in your company?
I think in short, in business, anything that can reduce the costs or increase the revenue, I think every business owner will be very, very interested in. And again, let's say coming back to my business as a freight forwarding, we're not exactly shipping. Freight forwarding, basically, it's a business where we can own assets or we can not own assets, and yet still able to fulfill the services that we give to the customers. So in my business, based in Singapore, it's very difficult to, or very challenging, I would say, to own assets because of the costs, labor costs, the whatever costs, it's really very high costs. And so our model really is asset light. How we do the business and all will be based on having or employing vendors with the assets to run the business for us, but yet at the same time we control the kind of services being rendered to our customers. And basing on this, it's not an immediate concern in that sense until you said 2027. Then my hands got wet, and it's not very far off. It's 2024 now, mid of 2024. But you see, we are not I would say that the scope 1, 2, 3, it's a direct or indirect contributor. For us, it's not a direct contributor in my business, in this context. It's more an indirect because we engage third parties. And I think that comes under scope 2. Would that be correct? Scope 3. So it's not an immediate concern for us at this point in time. And our base of customers are also not, they don't have these requirements at this point of time yet. Mostly are Asian customers, some European customers, US customers, but not they don't have this implementation requirement for us to follow yet. So coming back to the question on this, yes, we'll be interested, of course. If you change it to innovation, if you can reduce down the cost, increase revenue, then why not? But then the next question will come again is that, how do we maintain it? Is there any maintenance costs? Because this cost can be something that will also be, it may not be impactful in the long run, but in the short term, before 2027, it can cost quite a bit. Yeah.
It's a quick one. So for many smaller companies, I actually always just tell them, you do 3 things. So you reduce electricity, reduce water, reduce waste. That's it, done. By reducing these 3, you reduce cost, so settle, right? Just now to talk about, I don't own asset, I use my vendor. Your vendors will be very expensive going forward. So in 2027, he will have problem, or he or she will have problem because he or she will pay the carbon tax, will suffer the customer issue. And just now you mentioned about you may have some European customer, US customer. In US, there are 3 states. California, Oregon, Washington State, not the Washington DC, Washington State are implementing the requirement of suppliers' sustainability. Their scope 1 will be your scope 3. And therefore, No, your scope 1 will be their scope 3, and therefore, they will require you to lower your carbon emission. All this will happen in 2027. So when I talk in 2024, oh, Vincent, who cares? Yeah, 2026, you will know. So that is the point, but I'm just giving you a bit further away. And then, Europe, they have already implemented CRSD 2024, January. So you will see in January 2025, next year. So most of the customers, if you touch Europe, it's almost granted. They will ask you for requirements. They ask you to fill in a lot of interview questions. So in my personal opinion, why don't you just focus on doing things that you can, like reducing, reusing, recycling, electricity, water waste, and then you look at the projects like what he's doing, like what I'm doing in carbon reduction projects. That is secondary. Do whatever that you can first. So not that difficult, but ESG is the way.
Oh, thank you, panelists. That was really intense. That said, we only have 20 minutes left, and I've only started on the first question. But really, this is part of the problem of talking about ESG. It's because it's such a huge topic. It's very broad. Its consequences are far-reaching, and it's hard to get started if you're not in it. And I think that really underscores the importance of why we're talking about this. So, Kevin, pardon me, but we have to move on.
Okay, sure.
Right? And to the second question. Now, earlier during the opening address, our conference chair, Terence, talked about how he mentioned carbon credits is the new oil. Now, a controversial statement, surely, but I think a lot of people in the ESG space are very excited about carbon market and carbon credits. Now, for those of you who are not too sure what the carbon market is, no, we're not exactly selling carbon, but rather the price of reducing carbon emissions is being sold in the form of credits, and there are various kinds of credits. I'm not sure how many kinds exactly there are now, like 20-something? Okay, many. Anyway, about carbon credits and the carbon market, will this impact the way we do business in the future? And maybe how will it affect the way we do business in the future?
They all pushed the mic to me because we happened to early on invest in a air carbon exchange, into a carbon market exchange. When we did it, that was in 2018. That was very much early, and many people were looking at it and say, why are you investing in this? There's no transaction. And true enough, for those who had lived long enough, we said, yeah, I remember there was this CDM market too. And CDM market was actually almost 20 years ago. And people in Europe, they buy carbon credits to defray their own carbon emission. And subsequently, when it comes to the 20 years period, nothing has changed, and the volume was still quite thin, except for Europe because it's compliance. But as it is now, and now you hear it from Vincent and David and also Kevin, that I think it is drawing near with the declaration from COP26 in Glasgow. All countries pledged themselves to be carbon neutral by 2050. Carbon neutral is a huge commitment. And the way to move towards things, all of us here, like Kevin, the like of Kevin's who highlighted that, it's a lot of cost. If I invest in this, where's my revenue? What's my advantage? So I guess carbon credits came about so that to every one of your endeavor, you can actually earn carbon credits because you're reducing carbon emission, or you are actually trying to save maybe nature, afforestation, plant, and later on David can actually expand a lot more. He's in this slide. And with this, you get per ton of saving certain dollars back. It's essentially, then you'll be asking, how much is this? We see a lot of nature afforestation projects. Singapore and some of them are low, $2 to $8, etc. But I think we have seen interesting projects too, ranging from, I think if they are into blue carbon projects, I think our friend here, Ken, Red Sycamore, is into restoring ocean with some of their deep sea grass and all the rest. That's actually about $30, $40 over dollars per tonnage. Right? If you are into afforestation, we've seen Myanmar, some of the projects are listed on our exchange, about $30 over dollars, plus they were able to protect some of the rare species and animals and also the afforestation. So for mangrove plant, etc., we've seen it $20 over dollars to $30 over dollars per ton. So what I mean is, all of a sudden now, what Kevin had highlighted, this cost to you all of a sudden become, hey, I've got a second revenue. In here per tonnage, if I'm able to, and I've seen in this project that I just highlighted, for those they normally pledge about from 20 years to 40 years, and with this per tonnage that I highlighted about $25, they were able to show us a almost from 60 over million to about 150 over million for the next 30 to 50 years. If that is the revenue to you, I think later I'll hear from Kevin whether that is incentives to him. Yeah.
So I have to say that I come from a very, very, very specific market, the agriculture market, and there are methodology that revolve around carbon market in the agriculture scene. So at this point, we do see that carbon credit as an incentive to nudge behavioral change on the ground. For rice specifically, just now Dr. Victor mentioned that sometimes you got better quality product and people always perceive it to be more expensive. When you do rice, a core Asian staple, nobody is going to pay you a premium. The Europeans will, but very, very small portion. But Asians are not going to pay a premium. So we run into a challenge where you're trying to get the farmers to be more sustainable for their own good, but they don't see it. And you seem to be exposing them to risk because you want them to change how they do their farming practices, which is why this is the stage where carbon credit could potentially come in to help defray some of the initial costs, address some of the risks that potentially they might lose their yield. So we definitely see it as a tool. Now, if we break it down further, there's the voluntary carbon market, and gradually we'll also talk about the compliance market as related to Article 6. Each has its pros and cons, but both come in the same manner to de-risk some of the initial investment for everyone in the industry. Anybody?
So very quickly, just now Dr. Victor talked about the voluntary carbon market. You remember what he said, how much? Less than $5, huh? Do you know what is the price for ETS, emission trading scheme in Europe? Just guess, 1 ton of carbon, how much, roughly? From $5, 40, 50? 82 euro, 82 euro. So they were also $5. So I don't know, I think most of you, some of you are financial, very strong financial literacy people. You look at a product that can generate 10%, you should go in already. Or 15%, wow, very good. 30%, wow, super good. This is 500%. And then no one go in. Why? Because don't know. So I think this is the key. Carbon credit, like what Dr. Victor mentioned and Ken has mentioned. Go back and Google a little bit. So do YouTube. This will be the next oil. My personal view.
That's it about carbon credits. I think there's been a lot of news recently, I think particularly in December last year all the way up till now. They've talked about millions of dollars of carbon credits, billions being invalidated because of greenwashing concerns, right? So what does this mean for businesses in the ESG sector? And how can we prevent bad actors? Because I think clearly from the SME perspective, we have a lot of great ideas not getting funding because of fears of greenwashing. And at the same time, maybe there isn't enough of, or perhaps maybe Dr. Vincent can share. Is there enough of a global standard here with regards to carbon credits and how we view it? Or is that actually hampering the efforts of how we can save the world?
So in November 2023, Ken, Terence, myself, David, and Dr. Victor, we were in Dubai, COP28, and we were talking. And the audience has got a lot of senior leaders from oil companies. From really, the clothings are very different, white color, and really very senior. You can feel very senior leaders from oil companies. And they were sitting down there. One of them, after the session, came and asked me, "Oh, Vincent, this greenwashing, whatever you're doing, no use. Greenwashing, right? Everyone know, greenwashing. What's the purpose, man? You all do so many things, and greenwashing, all these are fake, scammers. So I told them, and I actually put that on YouTube also. I told them on record to everyone, if you are selling oil, you have no rights to criticize greenwashers. And there was like dead silence for 1 minute. Because at least the greenwashers are still doing something. They are still contributing to the environment and you are not. So I think greenwashing is really bad. It's a fraud. It's something that we should stop and we should not. you know, I'm an educator, I'm a adjunct professor for sustainability. I'm an educator, I educate both my students and my counterparts not to do greenwashing. It should be transparent, it should be ethical. But even if there are greenwashing, we should move forward with ESG movements. We cannot just say greenwashing and then don't do anything. So I truly, truly hate greenwashing, but I think it doesn't stop our movement.
Quick one. So just a quick point from beyond standards. We also have to understand that to quantify a sustainability project, to quantify emission reduction or sequestration, actually, it is a scientific process. But in most of the methodology, I think there's a sacrifice or a compromise between scientific rigor and ease of implementation. Sometimes if you step too much to scientific rigor, so for example for rice, there's so many million hectares of rice field, if the methodology or the market calls for you must have a sensor in every hectare, then this entire thing will just fall apart. So as I mentioned in the first thing I said, most of the ESG we do today is fairly shallow, but I think there needs to be a market understanding of where we lie, right? Walking this line is very, very difficult, but today, one of the key reasons of greenwashing is definitely the fact that we lack scientific rigor in our carbon accounting methodology.
So sorry, I forgot his other question about standard. So you all know ISO, right? ISO 9000. Who knows ISO verifier? Oh, okay, a lot. Who are ISO 14064 verifier here in this room? How many? Come on. Oh yeah, we have a few. We have Michael. So you see, there are standards already in place for us to verify carbons. And it is no longer like 10, 20 years ago where we just talk. And now we have consolidation of standards. So of course it takes time, and today there are so many standards. Vera, it's a gold standard. So all these funny things happen, but there is a consolidation. So eventually I truly believe the standard will lead us towards it. So ISO 14064, you all can Google, very transparent way of calculating carbon.
I suppose if any of you actually invested in some of these bonds, funds, green bonds, sustainable funds, impact funds, finance, etc., many of them are even rated. You see 3 stars by Morningstar, or some of them 2 stars or 1 star. I think part of this confusion or part of this greenwashing comes in because the funds manager are concerned. They actually went on to invest in project. Could be farming. It could be another project in energy. Some of it in Kenya and Africa. And I think the rigor, as what Vincent highlighted, to go to actually vigilate the projects is absent. So sometimes you see that in reality, in true spirit, they invested in that. But in terms of quantification, which then David highlighted, it's not quite there. We invested 10 million in that financing in, let's say, Congo. But how do you know whether there's afforestation put back? And I understand sometimes they chop away the trees. And here it is, I think there are new technology that comes out. You can put IoT, you can put dynamic monitoring, verification, and reporting tools to do that. So, and even blockchain. So once it's been chopped off, it will invalidate that. So there are new technologies doing it. But however, currently, this is absent in most of it. So you will see all this fabulous ESG product, but somehow not related. So I think there's a fine line of difference between intentional fraudulent greenwashing, and there are also the other part where, because it was not rigorous enough, and to solve that problem of not rigorous enough, standards, what Vincent highlighted, is the right thing, and plus technology. Technology can do the invigilation. Technology can actually validate that. Yeah.
Anything, Kevin?
So greenwashing, in my mind, is it's not authentic, right? In a layman's term, right? And one of the things that in mature companies or countries, nations, I think that's okay because there are standards being set and you follow that. But in countries such as like Vietnam, places like Mongolia where we do business, Central Asia, even Africa, Congo and things like that. How then, because when you say that, oh, we have all this ESG and all these things, how then do we know that it's authentic then? And And if it's not authentic, then should we really, as a SME, get on board on this as well? You know, so I think maybe this is something to a question, or rather maybe some clarification.
This was a direct answer that I gave much earlier on, but the part about technology can do its wonder. These days, if you have seen certain sites in their Earth shot, you go to their website, they could actually look at a satellite. They can monitor the afforestation you have made, even down to the specific tree. Some people actually donate trees and therefore defray their own carbon footprint. Right? They can even serialize that down to the tree itself. And with that, they were able to, even in blockchain, if that tree had been chopped off, the IoT will say the tree no longer validate, and the satellite shows that it's no longer there. And the entire carbon footprint or credit can be invalidated. So I think technology can do wonders here. And I thought to that, if you need to, ask about, is there technology? How do I invigilate? Show me the evidence. And usually there is a verifier to the certificate as well. There is in here, Vera or Gold Standard actually goes to audit. So this doesn't come in a laissez-faire way. There is a certain auditors. Yeah.
So just now we talk about different countries, and I have some friends and we say, oh, I go to Malaysia and plant a tree. Do you all know Singapore, we only have Article 6.2 signed with 2 countries. So do you all know which are the countries? Malaysia, is it counted or not? Anyone? If you think yes, raise your hand. Maybe, it's not. Indonesia? It's not. Vietnam? No. Mongolia? No. So none of these countries are allowed. So Singapore government is not stupid. So they are correct. So Singapore government, they are very, very slow. They are going in at a very, very slow pace. Only 2 countries so far are approved for Article 6.2. So we recognize the greenwashing, and we recognize that the technology is important to make it transparent, but the government is also helping us.
Given that we have 2 minutes left, let me quickly summarize some of the things we've covered. And this is a really heavy topic, right? I think all speakers agree that ESG is a trend. It's definitely here to stay, given that there will be carbon taxes implemented, not just locally, but worldwide. And to some extent, we will be incentivized within our businesses to think about ESG or think about sustainability, because if we don't, we're going to pay for it from higher energy costs, wastage, and so forth. We will need to understand the carbon market and carbon credits, because carbon credits will become a means in which we reimburse businesses which are environmentally friendly, for that matter, yes? With regards to greenwashing, I think Dr. Vincent has given us a lot in terms of standards. And even though, as David pointed out, there might be an issue with monitoring, or rather the cost of monitoring, but as AI and other technologies develop, this will become a thing of the past, right? And we'll definitely be able to do something about that greenwashing. That said, the final question perhaps for everyone, maybe in just 3 sentences, hopefully, as complex as this topic is, how can we look at ESG proofing our businesses or taking advantage of the carbon market? Do you have some words for the audience to take home? Anyone like to begin?
I think do something before 2027.
So I'm an associate professor of sustainability. So I talk to my students and then I say, oh, I'm doing so many things. Then the students say, oh, Dr. Vincent, you're doing so many things for yourself. I say, none of the things that I'm doing is for myself. I'll be dead by then. Whatever that I do, I will never be able to enjoy because I'll be dead by then. So 2100 is a date that I think some of my impact will I will be dead by 2100. If I'm still alive, I'm some kind of monster. But the point is that I'm doing for my children's children. Do you know that my children's children will never see Venice? My children's children will never see Jakarta, at least north part of Jakarta. My children's children will never see Maldives, because all this will sink. And therefore, I just want to leave with one quote. If we do what we have been doing, we will get what we have been getting. And maybe that's not good enough.
Right, along the same line, Dubai is flooding. China is having its heat wave. And to us here thinking that this is not real, maybe this is something that's 30, 50 years down the road, I think we are facing it right now. And I guess for our next generation, I think the next half a century, 50 years down the road, as you look back at this generation and see what did we do to avert this climate change, I wish that we had a positive impact. We wish that they see us that we had done something here and not be seen as the one that, hey, I think this generation actually consume a lot of carbon. And even as we tell them, we also ask that if without the carbon credits, without that revenue, I'm not going to do it, and we destroy Earth. I guess I hope that we have a different narratives and literature.
So I guess everyone might have expected a group of environmentalists, and we're going to come out here and tell you how climate change is going to change our life. I'm sorry you didn't get that. Actually, I think the speakers from the last group had more impact value than us talk about family and stuff. But I assure you, we're all family men. We believe in what we do. So I just want to bring it back to a bit more of my persona, right? And going back to climate change and how it really affects everyone. I think carbon credit, ESG, they are all carrots and sticks for us to change our behavior. But climate change is here to stay. So allow me to go back to how I usually am. I do wish that everyone become more aware of what we do in our daily life. As what Dr. Vincent said, do the simple stuff, right? And for me, because I'm in agriculture, the best thing I can ask you to do is later when you go for your lunch, don't waste your food, especially don't waste rice. Thank you.
All right, please join me in thanking our speakers. Back to you, Camilla.
Thank you. Wow. Thought-provoking. Very important topic indeed. After listening to this panel segment, I am happy that I am on the right track. I may not be a European woman, but I do check my calories on the bottle, as well as the carbon footprint. Give me a round of applause. Okay, so thank you to our panelists once again for that thought-provoking discussion. So now it's time for a well-deserved lunch break. Please enjoy your meals and network, and we will reconvene at 2 p.m. for our next session. Diversity, equity, and inclusivity staying the course. I repeat, we'll reconvene at 2 p.m. for our next session.